Antony and Ron, thank you for talking to us.
Our pleasure.
Before I ask you your own involvement in marriage equality, why is it such an important issue to you?
Well, obviously it's an important personal issue because we'd love the chance to be married. We have been in a long-term relationship for 28 years now. We would love to have the state sanction that. In regard to broader reasons, I suppose that we believe that marriage equality is a step against discrimination. In some ways it's the I guess it's the...
Look, okay, to me, it's the way with my family, my brother and my sisters, Ron's brother, when you are welcoming someone into the family, it's the way that you do that officially. It's by having a celebration with all your family and all your friends. And I've been to all the weddings, Ron's been to all the weddings, we go to all our friends' weddings, and we haven't had that chance. And it's as simple as that, really, at the end of the day. And it is very personal for us. We've been married now 11 times, 10, 11, and none of them legal. And yeah, it starts to hurt. It actually hurts. And I always find with each ceremony, I actually get more upset. But so it hasn't become something we just go through the motions of. With every time we have to do it again, I find it personally upset, like very personally upsetting, because of the fact that our government still won't allow us a simple right, and it's a human right. It's something that should be awarded to everyone, allowed.
How does it feel constantly being interviewed, constantly having to give speeches, constantly having to go to rallies, saying the same thing over and over again? And really, although there's a plebiscite on the horizon, etc., we're still not really any closer to marriage equality.
Well, obviously it's really frustrating. And with each year that we don't have equality, it gets more and more frustrating. It becomes fatiguing. You know, there is such a thing as battle fatigue in regard to a fight that you feel that should have been won many years ago. And we still aren't. I guess we're incrementally closer each year, but we still aren't there.
I'm gobsmacked that we're still in 2015, still even talking about this, and we're really not that close. Although I hate when people keep saying it's inevitable, because it's not inevitable unless we keep fighting for this. And yeah, 2015, you know, it's 11 years since the changing of the wording of the Marriage Act. And you know, I've always been maybe a bit more optimistic than Ron when it comes to this. And you know, after every rally I keep saying this is the last one, this is the last one. But I've been saying that for 7-8 years now, and we're still having rallies, and we've got one coming up early next year.
That's 2016.
That's 2016, yeah. And we're still not married.
You've been together 28 years.
We have.
In 2004, the Marriage Act changed 11 years ago. You just mentioned that.
Yeah.
How did it feel when it was changed for marriage to be between a man and a woman?
I thought, what a hateful, horrible, awful thing to do. Like, there wasn't even any need for it. You know, he just did that out of, we're talking about John Howard here, he did that out of mean-spiritedness when the laws changed in Canada for fear that, you know, Australian same-sex couples or LGBTI people might want to get married, and they do. Well, a lot of them, not everyone, and that's fine. But I just thought, what a nasty, nasty man.
We've talked about the plebiscite.
Yeah.
And you said you don't believe marriage equality is inevitable. But do you believe that the majority of people, if there is a plebiscite, which looks probable, will vote in favour?
Okay, that's double-edged for me. We already know that the majority of Australians want marriage equality, so I don't actually agree with the plebiscite, and I see it as a huge waste of money. It's going to cost, what is it,
Over
$150 million. And I've mentioned this before, but when Malcolm Turnbull became Prime Minister, he promised $100 million for the fight against violence against women, which is, I'm assuming, is a campaign that's going to be ongoing. But for one day, he wants to spend $150 million on a vote where we already know the answer. Forget about the plebiscite, give that $150 million to the Violence Against Women campaign, give them $250 million, get on with it. He could change this tomorrow. Tomorrow he could say, okay, let's go back to, let's allow same-sex marriage, LGBTI marriage. He could do that tomorrow, but he's going to waste his money and drag it all out. And it's another stalling tactic on behalf of a government who fears what? I'm yet to hear a good argument about why Ron and I shouldn't be married. We're not scary, we're not, we can be. But yeah, most of the time we're not. And just let us get married for God's sake.
Do you think there's a chance that Malcolm Turnbull, the Prime Minister, could change his mind regarding the plebiscite?
Yes.
He could, whether he has the courage to do so. Obviously we know that he is the leader of a very conservative party. There are very conservative members of his party that, obviously there was some sort of deal done. It's pretty blatantly clear to us that, if Turnbull has been a supporter of marriage equality until he became Prime Minister, I think it says lots of things there.
Do you think he was leaned on from the right of his party, the Nationals?
I can see no other reason.
If we have marriage equality, which hopefully we will, what do you think the timeline is?
Oh, you're asking me the wrong person. Ask him.
Look, if we go into plebiscite, which it does look likely, it won't happen until potentially at least until 2016 sometime, and then of course the bill still has to be passed through Parliament after that. So I guess the earliest would be if we aren't able to vote out this government, would be about 2017 before we could even see a change.
What do you say to people who oppose marriage equality on the grounds of, say, religion, culture or tradition?
Atheists get married all the time, and nobody says anything about that. Religion can be part of marriage, but it wouldn't be part of our marriage, and it's not a part of a lot of our friends' marriages. Not everyone in this country identifies as a Christian or even religious, but people are getting married every day if they choose to. People who don't want to get married, that's fine. That's their choice. It's not our choice, but that's their choice. But I wish the religious people would keep their noses out of our business.
Basically, marriage equality really only affects members of the LGBTI community. If there are Christians that are LGBT that are opposed to it, then I guess that would be the only valid reason. But I don't see any real reason why it would be.
There's always something.
One of the major groups that opposes marriage equality here in Australia is the Australian Christian lobby, who you mentioned.
We've met them several times.
What do you think of them?
We have been quite active in rallies against some of their meetings, I suppose. We know that they don't represent the true heart of Australian Christians.
I've never met a member of the ACL that's been able to look me in the eye.
What do you say to those often members of the LGBTQI community who perhaps are critical or concerned about marriage equality, that it might stigmatise couples who've been together, long-term, short-term, who out of choice do not wish to get married?
And I totally understand that. I suppose that the argument that I hear sometimes is that it may stigmatise those that are in marriages against people who aren't. But I think that stigma already exists anyway through the people who are living in long-term relationships against people who perhaps haven't been as lucky in love. And there is already a hierarchy there anyway. So I don't think marriage equality will necessarily change that.
And finally, on those who are critical, what do you say, again, often members of the LGBTQI community who feel it's very much a patriarchal institution or a heterosexual institution that we're buying into, aping heterosexuals, and rather than getting away from that idea of liberation, we're trying to assimilate. Any thoughts on that?
I'll line up people. It's a celebration of people who are in love and who just want to get together and celebrate it. And apart from all that side of it, there's all the legal stuff as well, that we're not automatically covered. Although we've been together 28 years, a couple that met 6 months ago and might be living together might have more rights than Ron and I do after all this time. So there's that side of it too. marriage, if we attain marriage equality, I assure you it will not be compulsory. Thank you. So yeah, you won't have to get married. We just want the opportunity, and so do a lot of our friends, and so do a lot of our friends want the opportunity to see us married, as our families do. So yeah, get over it.
In the past, we've had people like Penny Wong, even 5 years ago, who stuck to the party line back then on marriage equality. Julia Gillard opposed marriage equality. She has since come out in support of it, as of course as Penny Wong. Do you welcome their support? Are you cynical, or do you feel, well, people like Julia, obviously Penny's still got influence, but while people like Julia are out of power, do you resent the fact that they've come out in support now, or do you welcome it?
I guess yes and no. Absolutely, the movement has only grown through the changing of people's hearts and minds. So of course we welcome that. But of course, again, we are cynical that it could have been done at a time when it actually would have made a difference.
I think I'm maybe a little bit less cynical, because one thing, since we've become involved so much in this fight for marriage equality and speaking with a lot of politicians, I've been stunned at how little of their personal ideas and views they're actually allowed to share, and it's such a shame. And I've had politicians lie directly right into my face just before I'm about to walk onto a stage and make a speech, knowing that and swearing that they were telling me the truth, and knowing that that was going to change or slant maybe what I was about to say. So I think it's a real shame that our politicians are led by these silent people in the background that, that have to govern like everything that they say and do, or say that they believe in. Look, Penny Wong, of course she always supported marriage equality, she just couldn't say it. And Julia, I was cynical of her all along, but I applaud these people for their support. And I think anytime someone changes their mind, that's almost like a little bit better, because they weren't already there, but they've listened to our campaign, they've listened to people like Ron and I, and they've, the light bulb's gone off, and they can see that, this is the way it should be.
We've just had an openly gay federal MP elected in Sydney, from one of the electorates there. At the next federal election, we've got a number of gay candidates standing, including Carl Catter for the ALP, and we've got Jason Ball standing for the Greens and Higgins. What advice would you give them on their campaigns?
Ooh, interesting, seeing as they're both running in the same seat too, and they're both friends of ours.
Look, I think it's great that we're seeing more LGBTI representatives and candidates coming forward. I think that they, there are other important issues that not only our community but the broader community need to look at. So it's important that they're not still minded on one issue. However, this is, I think, a very important issue for our country at the moment, and it is something that they need to be to be pushing, and not just talking words about it, like some of the people that are in current government.
What do you think of the existing marriage equality campaigns, and have you got any advice to give them?
Well, look, it's been a bit of a journey, I suppose. 11 years ago, it was much more grassroots. And then we have a number of groups working across Australia in different ways, I suppose. We certainly have AME, who I guess in the main part do a lot of lobbying of politicians. Equal Love, which is the movement that we're involved in. I guess more activist in the way that we do it. We are responsible for mobilising people on the streets, and we've successfully, particularly in Melbourne, but right across Australia, been successfully able to mobilise thousands of people, rally after rally, year after year, and keep the momentum up. So that's an important message as well.
We all work differently, but we're all, going for the same goal. That's the way it is. Like Equal Love's like a cheeky little cousin, and then AME are a little bit more conservative.
But in terms of the advice, is to not be worn down by battle fatigue. That we have come this far, we've raised this much support. We just need to keep fighting for it.
Why do you think Australian politicians have been so slow in general to come on board compared to, say, other English-speaking countries?
I've got no, I almost swore then, idea.
Feel free to swear.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted. Like Spain and Ireland, for God's sake, where my people come from, such a conservative Catholic country, they beat us. I'm embarrassed by that. I really am.
I think I do suspect that what this issue has raised is that there isn't the separation of church and state that we perhaps celebrate ourselves as having. The truth is that there is a lot more control over our politicians because
Powerful Christians.
Yeah,
Rich, powerful Christians.
And in reverse to my previous question, why do you think many politicians from all the main parties have since come on board?
public pressure. I think that they've and listening hopefully to their constituents and to the stories of LGBTI people and their families.
And just like coming to realise that there's nothing wrong with it, the world will still turn. It's going to just allow, I think the world will be a better place when everyone is allowed to celebrate their love and do it in an official way.
And hopefully they're embarrassed. Hopefully they're embarrassed that we are one of the last English-speaking countries in the world that hasn't embraced marriage equality.
Yeah, people will remember this. People will remember this.
You've been together for 28 years. 28 years.
I'm only 35 years old.
I know you must have been children, but babies. But one of the myths I sometimes hear, even from people who identify as LGBTQI, is that same-sex relationships can't last and don't last.
Oh God, could you imagine training a new one? No, seriously. Well, they obviously do. And, you know, we know lots of couples that have been together for a long time, some longer than us. You've been with your partner for 10 years. I know lots and lots of people. So I think the trend is more these days for people to stay together than it used to be maybe when I first came out onto the scene when I was 16. Yeah, there was couples, but I don't know, maybe it just wasn't as obvious to me, but I think people are staying together more. Maybe I'm wrong.
What advice do you give to anybody who's wavering on the issue? Come a plebiscite if they're not sure how to vote, or even in general, what would you say to them?
Okay, I would say this is a human right. We shouldn't even be voting on whether people have human rights or not. But think about it, how is this going to affect you at the end of the day? If you vote no against this, that's just mean, you know. If you vote yes, it means that Ron and I can get married, and it doesn't mean that, you know, anything's going to change for you personally. So, yeah, just think of it in a personal way. No one voted on your marriage if you have one. You just have that right, and I think we should have that right too.
You've been together, I won't mention it again, but
170
170 years.
Yeah.
You said you've been married 11 times, none of them have been legally recognised. How does that feel?
The first one was on our 6th anniversary, because we thought we were awesome because we'd stayed together for 6 years. So it was started off, it was just going to be a party, but then it became a bigger and bigger thing. So it was actually quite a big event. We had like 120 friends, and yeah, it was pretty full on. And we were quite happy with that. At that time, this is 1993, at the time, the thought of us actually, even it being a remote possibility that we could actually be legally married seemed so crazy. That, you know, we wouldn't have even contemplated it as being possible. So every time since then, we don't just do this just for the fun of it, by the way. We do this at rallies, and we've been married on television, and we've been married on radio. So it's always been about making a statement. So we do it. Well, for me anyway, it's quite painful for me to get married all these times. So yeah, it's disappointing. I really wanted the 10th one to be the one, but we've already passed that, so who knows? You
said you've lost relatives in the years, very close relatives.
Yeah.
So a lot of sacrifices have been made because of inequality.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the first ceremony, my brother was there, my sisters were there, Ron's grandparents were there. That's not going to happen because they're not around anymore. I lost 2 sisters within 4 months of each other. I lost my brother 4 years later. Yesterday was the 15th anniversary of his death. My parents are no longer with us. Ron's grandparents are no longer with us. And they knew how much this meant to us. And they would have wanted to be there. And we would have wanted them to be there.
So this is what the government is stealing from us. They're stealing our chance to have the people that we care and closest that we're closest to from enjoying the celebration with us. And they're stealing our anniversaries of our wedding. They're stealing our history. And so for those people that say it's inevitable and that that's only a couple of years away, each year will matter. Each year we will be losing people. So it's time.
I can see the emotion, and I know there's a hell of a lot of support for marriage equality from people who are LGBTQI, people who are straight, people from all different sexualities and walks of life. How can those who support marriage equality get involved? What can they do?
Contact your politicians again and again. Just keep at them. You can get their email addresses very easily. Sometimes you can get their phone numbers. But yeah, just keep hassling them and
talk about it. Talk about it with your people.
Friends, yeah.
Become clicktivists. Share things on your Facebook profiles, your Instagram. So keep the momentum and the focus on it.
Come to the rallies.
Come to the rallies. The rallies are really important.
Yeah.
The more numbers we get, the more coverage we get on primetime news. And that's also something that the politicians can't ignore. Donate to Equal Love, donate to AME, donate to people who are working really hard.
Yeah, it's expensive to put on a rally. It costs a lot of money, so we rely on that. We don't really get given any money from the government or anything, so all rallies we have to raise the funds for.
A couple more questions. Obviously, marriage equality is a big issue at the moment, and particularly with the plebiscite on the horizon. Do you think there's a danger that the marriage equality rallies and the marriage equality debate is overshadowing other rainbow LGBTQI issues, or does it provide a platform for them and a hook to get people more involved in politics?
Yeah, look, that argument's always been there, and I think absolutely the latter's true. That that this is a springboard to highlight LGBTI issues within the greater community. I mean, we can be using this as a billboard, I guess, for other issues, but and I think it has highlighted in terms of changes within, particularly within Victoria, but also nationwide in terms of the way that the laws affect us.
Yes, of course there are other important issues, and I would like to be involved with them too. At the moment, this is our issue. But yeah, there are a lot of things, not even just LGBTI things, but a lot of issues like asylum seekers and a lot of issues that I'd love to get involved in, but my time is taken up. So yeah, there are other important issues. If they're important to you, good, you carry on with those and we'll do this. And then once we've got this sorted, we'll come and help you.
So how does it feel, because it's clearly a very important issue to you, when some people say there's more important issues, including LGBTQI issues, to deal with? Do you feel that you're being denigrated?
Oh no.
No, I think it's not about this and that or the other. We are able to focus on more than one issue at a time, and we should. Human rights, whether it's regarding marriage equality or general human rights, for us has always been an important issue prior to even this as being our primary focus. We were always working against LGBTI bullying in particular, and we see this as a really important part of that process.
So do you feel the campaign for LGBTQI rights does not end with marriage equality? It will continue?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
What are your hopes for the future?
Well, we'd like to get married and buy a house and picket fence and.
We've already got the cats. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I guess my biggest hope for the future is that the lives of young LGBT people will become easier than perhaps we had it when we were younger. That marriage equality, as well as the abolishment of anti-gay law throughout the country, will actually remove homophobia.
One of the really strong reasons for me being involved in this is the message that the government sends out to young LGBTI people is that your relationships and your love is not as worthy or as important, and is not worthy of any kind of official recognition, and that's horrible. And it was tough when we were growing up. It was illegal to be gay. You could be jailed for being a homosexual. And at the moment, young people today are still getting this message that all of your straight counterparts can all grow up and live happily ever after and get married if they want to. You can't. Not right, not fair. It's cruel.
And finally, when you do get that wedding, that will be legal, that will be recognised in the future, what is your fairy tale wedding?
Oh God, don't even. Everybody imagines we're going to have this fabulous Las Vegas style wedding and Cher's going to pop out of the cable or something. A couple of things. We can't afford that. Hello, new idea. And then, look, we've done it all. We've had a big ceremony, and we've had lots of little ceremonies, and we've had a TV ceremony, and we've had a radio ceremony. So it's not about this big thing. That would be for everybody else. I think the way that it will happen for us, I'm pretty sure, will be a registry office or in a park with a celebrant and a handful of people. And we wouldn't tell anyone else about it until afterwards. And then we would say, hey, we're at the pub, come to the pub if you want to have a drink with us. We just got married.
Antony and Ron, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.